Welcome back to this panel on cybersecurity. In this panel, we'll be discussing the IMO deadline, which is approaching within the next month. And as the industry is shifting to remote work, along with digitization as a key trend, cyber safety or cybersecurity is a key priority. Is our industry aware of the cyber hazards? Have we prepared properly? What are the things we should be alarmed for? We've seen cyber safety or cybersecurity, again, as I said, you name it, is a key issue. We've seen several incidents of phishing and other sorts of cybersecurity nature going into the press. And in this panel, we are joined by Francesco Arisia, who is a senior consultant with RINA, Manos Christofis, who is the cybersecurity strategy advisor for the Applus Group. We are joined by Stavros Koutoupes, who is the Greece country manager for WorldLink Communications. Yannis Maroulis from the ABS Group. He is the business development manager there. And Themistoklis Sardis, last but not least, working as an IT manager for one of the leading operators, Costa Mare Shipping. And I would like to welcome all our panelists into this discussion. And I would like to hear from them. And I'll ask for the panelists to give us their thoughts, starting with Francesco. Francesco?
Good morning to everybody. I'm Francesco Arisia, and I'm a senior consulting for RINA. I'm currently connecting from Paris, where I worked for the security of a European space program for the navigation system. Today, I am the first speaker of the cybersecurity panel. Okay, okay. There is always a gap between the speed of the evolution of the technology and the protective measure to protect the asset. This gap is the mother of the cyber vulnerability. There are vulnerabilities on the maritime world. Yes, SMB demonstrate that it's possible to change the vessel direction of the ship interfering with the GPS. This is just a demonstration, but in the past, there was a lot of event, a real cyber attack to the maritime company. For instance, now the pirates use the cyber attack to discover where are located on the ship exactly the more expensive asset in order to maximize the attack. And it's very famous, a huge ransomware that attacked one of the biggest supply chain company, and there was the port facility was blocked for several days with the damage in terms of revenue of millions and millions of dollars. What is the perimeter of the cybersecurity? We are information technology is composed by computers, server, network, Wi-Fi, and the operation technology system, the IoT. This is the most critical asset for the ship, the cargo management system, the power control system, the bridge system, and the access control system. This is the new challenge of the cybersecurity, in particular for the ship. And in terms of regulation, there are several standard and regulation, NIST, ISO, national framework. But now there is also something in the dedicated for the maritime world. The IMO with the resolution 9641 recommended to the ship company, to the maritime company, to consider the cyber risk in the safety management system no later of the first annual verification of the next year. This is a first risk assessment mandatory in the maritime world. And in terms of guideline, BIMCO provide to the company this guideline that help the company to be compliant with the new regulation. Of course, this is just for me a first step, is a risk assessment in order to start to consider the risk on the maritime world. But we need to start to consider the risk from the beginning of the development of the ship or of the port facility, like security by design, in order to install device, solution, platform inside the ship in order to arrive at the cyber resilience on board. Even if the ship will be not connected for the external world, the ship should be cyber resilience. And RINA, as a company, propose several services, guideline for the assessment for marine and offshore, gap analysis consulting, and also a class notation, additional class notation for the cyber resilience. Thanks a lot for your attention, and if you have a question, I'm open.
Thank you very much, Francesco. Manos, we're up to you now. What are your thoughts? Where is the industry standing with regards to cyber safety or cyber security?
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone. Let me have a little bit of a kind of introductory, let's say, statement over here. Thank you very much, Francesco. You have very good declared the overall. My understanding is that all of you are aware of the famous quotation that these companies either have been hacked or will be hacked. And I'm going to add the third category of those companies that have been hacked and they don't know it. So the hackers are in their networks, they are doing stuff, exfiltration of documents, manipulation of data, many things, just leave it to your imagination, and they don't know it. So this is something that I would like to highlight, that the future for cyber attacks is definitely sure. It's not unclear. Cyber attacks will continue in cyberspace. So that's one part. The other thing that I would like to highlight is that we need to treat cyber risk, as was mentioned before, not as only a technical risk. I think now it's more mature, the whole environment, to understand that this is a kind of operational risk as well, which have a direct impact to business objective. And this is our strategy and my approach when I talk to general manager, to CEOs of shipping companies, saying that you need to see the cyber risk as an impact to your business. You need to treat it as another business risk. We know that the risk treatment in shipping, in maritime environment is like a bread and butter, let's say. So they live with this risk assessment. So cyber risk is a new thing that needs to be taken into consideration towards business objectives. And just to say something that we need to treat it like that, and cybersecurity not as a technical issue that needs to be solved, but we need to see it as an enabler of business objectives. It's a kind of additional value that will allow the shipping companies to move forward in a safe and secure environment to continue being operating. That's the impression and the understanding that I have accumulated all that years dealing with cyber threats and cyber risks. So this is the case, I believe, and this is how we should establish the discussion later on. I would like to stop over here, don't go into details, but just to highlight and set up the scene for the future discussion. Thank you, Apostolos.
Thank you, Manos. I would like to add the fourth category, because you said at the beginning have been hacked or will be hacked. You said those who have been hacked and they don't know it. I have to add the fourth category because we have to be honest. Those who have been hacked and will be hacked in the future.
Again, yes.
Need to forget that, because this is real life. And I'm not saying when we think of hacking, it does not necessarily mean that someone has hacked our server and so on and so forth. It could be someone hacked our phone and we have been, manipulated in a number of ways. I'm just saying it's human nature, and it can happen in a number of ways. We have to bear in mind, because it's not only the big names, the Maersk of the world and the IMO and so on and so forth. It is happening on several levels on a daily basis.
Correct. I will quote your statement in my next presentation.
Just to take some reality of what is going on. Next one is Stavros. Stavros, you can have your presentation. You double click.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the invitation to this webinar. I'm Stavros Kotoupis, representing Worldlink Communications in the Greek market. Let me see. It doesn't advance. I don't have the...
You have to double click and then it will advance.
I have double clicked, but it doesn't advance.
It does.
Oh, yes, here it is. Okay. Now, a few words for Worldlink Communications. Is a very old satellite communications provider, and essentially we provide connectivity services through the usual channels, free broadbands, free express, VSATs, iridiums, and all these things. And obviously, lately, we have undertaken the cybersecurity of the vessels that we manage. It's very slow. Oh, yeah. Okay. So here are the questions. Is shipping industry aware of the cyber hazards? To my understanding, no, they are not. Then they cannot be aware of the known cyber hazards. Essentially, the hackers with the known cyber threats can be stopped from any usual infrastructure, either on the vessel, on the provider, or in the office. It's the serious hackers that we should be afraid, because they are involving all the time, and they find very nice ways to break systems. So you have to fear the unknown cyber threats. And in this case, you need real-time special expertise in order to mitigate these unknown threats. So has the industry prepared? I do not believe that it has prepared properly. I believe that the Maersk, let's say, accident was a very, very small accident compared to the Exxon Valdez accident. We need very big accidents that will shake the industry. So what are the challenges, the changes that should be affected? Essentially, the management should embrace and implement at least the IMO guidelines or the BIMCO guidelines or any other class guidelines concerning the cyber security. So the mindset that we should have is that safety, we have to take it in a very live manner. Cybersecurity is not a static thing. It's not an instrument, a machine that we install it, we leave it, do it, it's one work, and then we are safe. No, we're not safe. You are not safe. As they said to the previous speakers, if you have not been hacked, you possibly don't know that you have been hacked. So, as I said, the hackers get involved. They always stay one head of everybody else. So, for top security, you have to sacrifice nice things like how easy we do our things in the operations. So, these are essentially the IMO guidelines that should be implemented in any cybersecurity manual to identify through continuous assessment of all the possible vulnerabilities, to protect against the network and by having an enhanced network protection through hardware, software, and procedures, to detect the threats with intrusion detection systems, preferably operated from the cloud, and to respond with either an anti-malware protection system or a real-time, let's say, system that I will show you afterwards. And essentially, you have to resolve possible attacks and whatever has happened to your infrastructure. So this is a very typical example of what you should expect to find out from your infrastructure, from your PCs. You have to know the threats. You have to know their description and possible severity level and possible resolution fixes, proposed resolution fixes. You have to know these things all the time, and these things change continuously. So essentially the components, because we are doing only the vessel cybersecurity stuff, we are not implementing cybersecurity solutions in the offices. You have to harden the security, the satellite communications. You have to move the defenses from the vessel to the shore. You have to safeguard the satellite communication links. If you get a denial of service attack on your vessel, you lose both satellite links, and nobody can do anything about this. So we propose to shift all this defense to the shore, to the hub of the satellite communications provider. And essentially, you have to find out how to do real-time attack. Most systems can stop a lot of threats, but what will happen to your infrastructure, you have to know it in real time in order to be able to respond. So you have to know which instrument, which PC has been affected and how it has been affected. So essentially, the known infrastructures can manage known threats. You should be aware of the unknown threats. And that's where the system of the security operations centers take over in order to analyze and react to such attacks. So this is a kind of, this is a typical example of a trajectory of an infection. You can see in real time, in the time axis, how an infection has propagated, to which IP, and to which directory and file. And this gives you the ability to manage the attack in real time and in a more meaningful way without wasting time attending to PCs that have not been attacked at all. So this is where the security operating system, the security operations center comes into play. And that's what we have, operating 24 hours, 7 days, 365 days, taking care of the fleet that we manage. So this is, thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Stavros. And we move on to Themistoklis. Your thoughts, Themis?
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for the invitation. As you said, I'm the IT manager of Costamare Shipping, and one among my many hats is to take care of cybersecurity in the office and in the fleet. Of course, when you have many hats, I mean, you cannot be perfect at everything. So we try to have an approach where we use external partners and to help us secure our offices and our fleet. Now, are we aware, or in general, is shipping aware of the cyber hazards? The answer is yes and no. We get everyday news of something happening. Like we had very recently CMA CGM being hacked, so they weren't able to get orders for cargo. This took at least 1 week to resolve, and I don't know how much money does it translate, and how many disgruntled customers who would move their business elsewhere. We had the IMO website being hacked. I've heard the rumors for a couple of Greek companies, undisclosed, that they suffered a ransomware attack. Recently, we received fake invoices. So yeah, you know that there is a problem out there, but the average executive, the average user in a shipping company is not fully aware of the extent. And of course, the mentality is like with it will always happen to someone else and not to us. So for the responsibility that falls to us in the IT department and the IT professionals is to transfer the knowledge and also the seriousness of the problem to our colleagues and partners. Now, we also know that the IMO resolution is coming to effect this January. Are we prepared? Again, the answer is yes and no. Everybody has amended their ISPS plans, and the procedures are there. The guidelines have been implemented into our systems. But technically, are we there? I mean, I leave that to you. I mean, probably we're not 100%. I mean, the offices, of course, have to be better prepared, but are better prepared. Necessarily, since the connections to the internet and the daily traffic, I mean, necessitates that. But yeah, SIPS is kind of a question mark for everybody. Yeah, it's not a wait and see situation. I mean, it's an ongoing process, and we are reviewing every day. I mean, one of my co-presenters talked about the IMO guidelines. There is a very nice graph with a cycle. So you plan, you do, you check, you revise, and you do again. So this is a continuous process. And we implement we see an issue, we design a solution, implement it, and then we see how it goes, and a new challenge comes up. And you never stop spending money. But in my experience, in my personal view, it's money well spent. I don't know how, just not to waste your time, I would like to add that the recent COVID crisis has proven that money that was spent on technology, well spent on technology, is what kept us working in a challenging environment where we had 90% of our personnel working from their homes. If we hadn't spent the money in the past to have remote access ready, to have security measures ready, then it would be a huge challenge to continue working as normally. So yeah, that's my conclusion, that you need to listen to the experts, and you need to invest in technology, in cybersecurity in particular. And if you do, it will prove in the future that it was money worth spent. I'm looking forward to the questions later on, and thank you again for asking me to participate.
Thank you very much, Demis. Thank you for the reality you injected into the discussion. And just to add some more reality, we have to also accept the fact there are 5,000 approximately operators out there across the globe. I know that 10-20% of these operators, in terms of number, they control more than 50-60% of the global fleet. And I understand what you say. Are we ready? Yes and no at the same time, because the problem with the IMO legislation is that it sets the bar too low. And the problem is not to set the bar too low and and hit, but to set the bar too high and miss, but to set the bar too low and hit. And there are certain players in the industry, they think they are ready with respect to the IMO legislation, and they have prepared for everything. And I thank you for the reality you injected, because we've seen operators with all the IT functions outsourced. We've seen operators, of course, with IT departments in excess of 20, 30 people, large operators or very large operators. And we've seen ships with no technology at all, built 20, 30 years ago. And we've seen state-of-the-art ships, fully digitized, like the latest LNG ships and the latest cruise ships and so on and so forth. So there are a number of different scenarios in the market. And I thank you very much for the reality you injected, because we have to bear this in mind as we move forward. Now, let's move on to Yanis. Yanis, you can have your presentation. You double click and you can have your presentation. You have to unmute.
Okay, now you can hear me?
That's okay, that's okay.
Okay, so I have to double click the presentation, but I don't think that it works. I don't know why. Can you see it? Yes, you can. But...
It works.
Okay, now it works. So, hello from my end as well. I would like to thank the previous guys that discussed about cybersecurity, but because at the end of the day, I'm going to build on what already have been discussed. And I would like just to say that we all agree that nowadays cybersecurity is a business imperative. And the main reason behind is because cybersecurity is very well linked, not only with data and information technology, but also, and at most importance nowadays, with operational technology, which may have significant impact to day operations, safety, environment, and environment. Cybersecurity should be a business decision for shipping companies from now on. Attacks are more frequent, varied, and intense. Operation technology and attack is still a gray zone, both for companies and attackers, so have to be prepared for. I'm pretty sure that nobody wants a vessel to be part of a safety incident because of a cyber attack, for instance, through a control of navigational system. Governments making cyber a priority, trying to set up new rules, however, are running slow and well behind technology. And again, nobody would like to be in front of an unforeseen event with known consequences for environment, safety, and operation, but not only to that, also with big financial losses and maybe reputation. Insurers, from the other hand, working to better understand cyber risk technology, but a lot of work still have to be done. The only solution, as people running the companies, is to understand that safety is not an expense, it's a priority, which consequently may also protect from final safety, environmental, reputation, and other risks. Everybody starts to increase their interest on cybersecurity and to invest on this. We have saw that nowadays, especially after COVID period. Even traditional companies have started using more and more the technology, mainly because there is no other choice. Let me move on a bit. And what I would like to talk with you is about the operational and safety risk. Let's take a look how it works. Let's update so the cyber attacks moving from information technology to operational technology is a reality. Cyber attackers have started to focus on operational system to affect physical operations through equipment and devices used. Environment safety is also part of the attackers through the equipment in use. Could be varied depending on the operation in place. It's clear that talking about cybersecurity is not anymore an IT issue, but it started to be more and more an operational and safety issue. Thus, we have recognized that cyber is becoming a business imperative. A holistic approach needed to optimize and minimize the risk. In this effort, all the departments of a shipping company should be involved and be part of it to address it. And it's not something static that should stay with IT department. Okay, next one. So what I would like just to show here is just to show you how ship is exposed in common vulnerability system as well as common vulnerability points, because you have the systems that can be vulnerable, but from the other side, you have the points of attack. So the system, of course, are the systems that already the previous guys discussed, and these are the administrative and IT, are the communication networks, the propulsion, cargo management controls, and ballast controls, things like that. Don't forget the vulnerability points, which could be the untrained crew, the uncontrolled third-party access, source ship remote access, mobile devices and portable USBs, as well as uncontrolled maintenance and updates, which is at the most importance as well. Lastly, I would like just to discuss a bit about the common challenges that you can face when organizations are implementing cyber programs. They have common challenges. The most common challenge is to obtain a current and comprehensive inventory of cyber OT assets. Many companies conduct only occasionally manual assets discovery without a current and complete asset inventory. So you do not know what they need to protect. With a large number of OEMs and vendors, it's difficult to develop a comprehensive cyber program. Companies need both IT and OT solutions. However, they often focus on the IT, leaving the OT exposed. Human error and insider threats are often the biggest exposure. Attackers know they can exploit, inviting people to deploy their attacks. Most organizations do not have visibility into the monitoring of the OT environments. This can leave them behind and blind to attacks. There is a significant lack of cyber experience, both on OT and on IT and OT side. Particularly true is that this lack is on the OT cyber side. Companies need to partner with organizations with enough expertise to provide adequate protection. The OT maritime cyber takes very specific domain expertise. Simply using an IT solution will not be enough. You need to understand the operating environment to properly protect it. Many systems were not designed with security in mind. The complexity of the system across multiple networks demand a system of systems approach to cyber. That's the reason that nowadays the remote managed services and monitoring is coming. And this is for visibility across the OT and IT networks across the fleet. So you have to build up your monitoring services. So you have to do the asset discovery and management, the vulnerability management, the configuration management, the threat monitoring. You have to go through the common incident mitigation and eradication, to threat handling, and at last, threat analytics and reporting. So to secure, minimize, and optimize your risk among cybersecurity. At that point, I would like to thank you for your attention. What we have to say from ABS side on the cybersecurity side, we are very focusing on IT and OT, mainly nowadays on OT. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Yannis. Now, I would like to start the discussion. I would like to ask a specific question. We have the pandemic, and I think we all agree, the majority of us, I think we will agree, that this crisis has boosted the digitization a lot in a number of ways, in a number of fronts. So I would like to ask you, what do we keep as we move forward from this pandemic, from this crisis? It's a number of months now. It's maybe 10 months for those who operated in China early January. It's 10 months. It may take a number of years to go back to normality, let's say to where we were at the end of 2019. What do we keep as we move forward? What do we change with respect to cyber safety, with respect to digitization? Starting with Francesco, what do you think? What are your thoughts on this?
As I mentioned also on my slide, the recent pandemic has increased the gap between the evolution of technology and the protective measure, because we accelerate this process of remote access, remote technology, and of course the protection measure arrive later. So we need to start to consider the cybersecurity in parallel. When we develop something, we need to, in the same times, to consider the risk of the new technology, the new platform that we implemented, because otherwise we always are in delay to protect our system, our asset. And yes, for me, as I mentioned, we need to consider the cybersecurity in the design of the new technology, of the new platform. For the COVID was a little bit a surprise, because we are not expecting this pandemic, but for the future, we need to consider as we start new services, as you start a new platform, a new remote services, we need to consider on the same way the security, the risk associated on these new services, on these new task.
Thank you. Manos?
Let me try to approach it again from cyber risk perspective, because pandemic, it was one opportunity for the hackers to get into the companies, into fleets, into, you understand, into taking their objectives. It might be elections, might be Olympic Games, you understand, all that are opportunities for them to start getting into, so I wouldn't like to focus narrow-minded only to pandemic. You understand, of course, teleworking was a huge, let's say, development, and that was a big risk over there, getting into the companies and all that. But from cyber risk perspective, impact is aware. Everybody knows, taking control of the ship, you know, all that stuff. What it is not very well understood is the probability if we go into the cyber risk approach. What I mean, what is the motivation of the guys that are doing the hacking behind? It's not only the money, it's not only the cyber crime, it's not only that. Probably that's why the senior management in maritime community doesn't believe 100% that cyber threat is here, cyber attacks are real and all that, because they understand the impact, they don't see the motivation behind, and they say, okay, I have not a very big company, not enough, okay, why we should target me? And I would like to raise a new dimension, which is the geopolitical dimension. The guys behind the scene who's doing the attack, we know very well from reports, and it's all over the internet since yesterday, and also in the past, that they are state-sponsored in many cases. They are doing that for living, and I would like to highlight that. They do it as a job, and they target specifically critical infrastructure of countries. And maritime, the shipping companies, are the jewel for Greece. They have a lot of value, and don't underestimate that there is also a geopolitical motivation behind that in order to destabilize Greece. I would like to raise that, you understand, in a very different level than the technical, but this needs to be taken into consideration. Why? In order to understand that the probability is high, the impact is high, that means that cyber risk is very high. So we need to pass the message to executives that please handle that high risk as you treat all the high risks in your daily business, and pay large attention, pay the proper attention, and invest into proper cyber security technology, people, and processes that I will address later on. That's something that I would like to highlight before we move forward.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this geopolitical element, and I'm sure we've heard a number of things in the past, and it's certainly an issue. Now, let's move on. Stavros, your thoughts on this?
Well, our thoughts, our experience from the vessel satellite communications perspective, let's say, is that the latest pandemic has increased the requirements for bandwidth. It has increased the expenditure, let's say, from the crews in order for them to communicate with their families. And for the companies that, let's say, they have old free broadbands, let's say, it's an opportunity for them to upgrade to something better because the crews are demanding it because of the COVID. So in general, the more communications you have, the more bandwidth you have, the more vulnerable the vessel can be, and the company as well, the more vulnerable they can be to hacker attacks. So the management of the maritime companies, they have to take seriously that they are not on their own. Somebody is looking for them for several reasons, as the previous speakers mentioned.
Okay, thank you, Stavros. Themistoklis.
What really changed is that the perimeter of our network expanded. So you have to protect a much more diverse and difficult network. For example, before the pandemic, we had there was support for remote access to the office, but it was used by us in the IT department for support reasons and a few other colleagues, mostly the use of the IT systems was from within the office. From that, we moved within two to 3 days to 85–90% of the personnel working from home. In the first stages, some of them had to use personal equipment because of the lack we had. We didn't have laptops for everybody. So this added, you had an unknown system with unknown, if you had the virus protection, the local firewall, etc., connected to your LAN. I mean, this caused nightmares, as you know. Fortunately, we didn't have any issues, but it was an apocalypse, let's say. So we have to change the whole mindset, implement extra measures like multi-factor authentication. We are actively monitoring all connections anyway through the SOC, a Security Operations Center. So that was a major change. And we are learning to live with that. That's the new norm now. Regarding our fleet, we did see an increase in the orders for data pins and data usage from the crew. Basically that, and the good news was that people adapted really quickly to the new normal, and everybody was eager to help. Also, another great win was collaboration tools like Microsoft Teams or Zoom or whatever everybody uses, that from a niche application somewhere in the company's PCs and laptops, that there was a bothersome pop-up every morning when you log in. I mean, welcome to Microsoft Teams. They would just go and close it. Now everybody's using it, they're loving it. So, yeah, it wasn't all that bad. One thing I'd like to stress in closing my my answer is that a concern I have is the rise of the shadow IT. I mean, we have web platforms, and it's difficult to control people going and creating their own, let's say, trying to find tools to do their job remotely. For example, I mean, if the company uses tool, let's say Microsoft Teams, and for some reason someone wants to use Zoom or whatever you have, then they can go and create a profile and do whatever they like. Similar with other applications for collaboration or even. So it's a big risk, and we need to take that in consideration, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Themis. Yannis, your thoughts?
Yeah, I would like to start stating that the more connected, the higher the risk is. So I'm using this expression because talking about COVID drive everybody to be more connected and connected. The same happens to maritime industry as well, which was not well prepared for. So if we would like to discuss and say what you're going to do and how you're going to do, you have to mitigate your risk. The risk is there, is high. We're going to see a lot of things in the near future. So we have to mitigate and react on the risk that we're going to face soon. So let's try, if you say that what we can do on that, let's leverage the knowledge of the market and of the subject market experts and use it within our companies, invest on cybersecurity in something very important. As said in my presentation as well, cybersecurity is nowadays business imperative. I really believe that. So let's have it as part of the day-to-day operations on the business, on the shipping companies. This is very important to be happen. Should be something like a day-to-day operation, means that every day the operator has to send the voyage orders. Okay, this is something that has to be done. Let's do the same for cybersecurity. So let's put it on the operational part and be part of the daily business of the companies, just to secure, minimize, and optimize the risk.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, my next question is about the IMO legislation. I'm not saying anything. I would just like to hear your thoughts. IMO legislation, as Francesco nicely put it in one slide, is 3 lines. 3 lines. Each operator needs to incorporate some sort of cyber safety or cybersecurity measures. So it's 3 lines. We've seen the industry guidelines, And there's a lot of buzzwords around across during this pandemic about self-regulation, guidance, better cooperation, etc. I would like to ask if we as an industry are happy with the existing legislation, which is actually not a legislation, but it's asking the administrations to make sure via an indirect way. Let's say it's a legislation, but it's 3 lines. Are we happy with that? Should we need anything more in specific in particular? Should we go any other way? Are we happy with the guidelines we have, the industry guidelines? So what are your thoughts on this, Francesco?
Okay, first, a general comment about this resolution, because the IMO suggests to consider the risk of the cybersecurity in the safety management system. This should be a light on the mind of all the administrator, because it's on the safety management system. So in the ship, it's a different world. The cybersecurity should be managed in a different way, because it's not only impacted the security, but the perimeter of the security and the safety are, for me, are a bit merged. Okay, this is super important to know. And yes, of course, the industry are happy about this resolution, because it's a beginning. As I mentioned on my presentation, it's the beginning to consider the risk, to ask, to expertise consulting, to understand the level of maturity of the resilience of the company to the cyber risk. And but of course, it's just at the beginning, because as also Yanis mentioned, we have a lot of work behind to do, and the cybersecurity should be in the daily operation of the company in order to avoid big risk in the future. And yes, and regarding the level of the resolution, it's I think you never go in details when you need to write a resolution, because otherwise it's too difficult to implement. And I think that this free line, it's enough to start to consider the risk properly. And yes, but I'm expecting more details, more resolution in this matter in the future. This for me is just the level 1.
That's okay. I just like to. I have to play the devil's advocate, because I'm not saying you're going, taking a deep dive. I'm going to say, just for the sake of the argument, but what I'm saying is accurate, complete. ISM is less than 10 pages. Less than 10 pages legislation if you print it into an A4 format.
I know.
If you do a poll anywhere across the industry and ask the audience to reply, how many pages do you think ISM legislation is? They're going to say anything in between 5 to 1,000 pages. This is what the audience thinks. This is what the industry thinks. I'm just saying, with respect to cyber, should we be considering, let's say, SIP-specific requirements? Because we haven't seen any of these SIP-specific requirements in any sort of guidance. Should we seek, let's say, any specific training for those who are involved, those who are on board the ship, those who are ashore? We haven't seen anything. No one is talking about different requirements about offices and ships. And I just injected reality earlier on. I said, we've seen a wide spectrum. We've seen offices state of the art who can support remote teams working in a number of locations across the globe. And they did it before the pandemic, and they do it successfully now. And of course, we've seen offices with no technology at all. We've seen ships built 25, 30 years ago with no digital sort of, the latest. And we've seen ships like the latest LNG and the latest cruise ships who embed technology in an unprecedented way. I'm just asking you to give me your feedback. There are a number of different things across the industry. I want you to take a deep dive and tell me, what do you think? I'm not saying you have to say this and this and this. I want your thoughts and opinions on how we should approach the issue. Francesco, do you have anything else to add? Because what you said, I want you to take a deep dive, and you are sitting over there, and what you said is actually what you said in the presentation. Should we seek anything more in particular?
For me, to write a specific requirement for ship and for the port facility can be really a changing factor for the company. For me, this can be done for instance, for the new ship. You can, it's possible, it's recommended to write specific requirement for the development of the new ship. For the previous one, we can, for me, is a good approach to do some guideline in order to protect the ship, because the design of the ship is not made for the protection from the cyber. So I think for the past, we need just to provide guideline and guideline in order to protect the previous ship and port facility. Of course, for the new one, as I mentioned, we need to. It's a good approach to will be a good approach to write some specific requirement in order to be sure that the new ship will be cyber resilience to the cyber attack.
Thank you for bringing forward two of the nicest elements on this agenda: the new builds versus the existing ships, and the port facilities. Because if we take, for example, the ISPS code, I'm just giving an example here. IMO has issued legislation regarding ships and port facilities for the physical security. But for cyber security, we tend to forget that ships operate within these port facilities. And if these port facilities do not make sure that we operate on a cyber safe environment, then we may have some issues. And the Maersk incident is directly related with these port facilities infrastructure and how they support the operation of the ship. Okay, Manos.
All right, let's take one step back. Before IMO, what did we have? Almost nothing. Everyone was trying to find what it is cybersecurity, to identify the risk, to understand what has to be done. But the point that IMO was forced is to bring that legislation, as you called it, is to be sure that the transportation of goods is under safe and secure way. And cyber risk is in place right now, is real, as we have many times addressed. So IMO had to enforce somehow an approach that would make this transportation, I know it's not enforcement, it's okay, I know.
I just like to press you a little bit. If we go and ask Themis, for example, when he was hired back in Costa Mare, I'm sure he's gonna tell you he's working with Costa Mare for a number of years. Costa Mare and other top-tier operators, they had a number of initiatives, a number of procedures in place. They don't expect IMO to come forward and say you have to do this and this and this. That's why Themis and every IT manager in a top-tier organization can say that yes, we have a number of issues in place. However, they might honestly agree that this is an ongoing process and there's a learning curve, and we learn as we proceed. I want you to don't stay on the IMO legislation. IMO legislation has put the bar too low. I'm not saying we are expecting or there shouldn't be. I want you to take a deep dive and tell me your thoughts. What do you think the industry needs?
I'm trying to say that the IT managers, they were aware, but the business owners were not convinced to move forward and invest in cybersecurity. That's why IMO played and plays a critical role into that. You understand? This is the difference. The IT were aware, they knew the impact, they knew everything, but they couldn't move up for decisions to invest in cybersecurity. So when IMO comes in place and say, okay, guys, 1st January 2021, you need to have a cyber security risk management mechanism in place. Of course, at that level, IMO cannot go into details and say you need this, and this technology. That comes to other entities, let's say, to define. That's why we saw BIMCO, for example, guidelines were more detailed after that. So it's like you start with the strategy, and then you become with the policy, and then processes, you know, all the stuff that then to deliver. And what I saw up to now is, for example, for different kind of ships like bulk carriers, which see, and very soon will be out, specific requirements detailed also for vessel and for company itself. For example, as you mentioned, do you have trained personnel on board vessel for cybersecurity? It is there, it is out there, probably has not been publicized yet, but it is there. Do you have a real-time monitoring for vessels mechanism for cybersecurity? It is there, the requirement. And be sure, I can confirm, and you will see it in the very near future, that the auditors right now from oil majors, or you name it, their charterers will come with a different, completely different questionnaire than it was few months or some years ago, which was just, do you have cybersecurity in place? Yes, okay, fine, green light. Now they are going to be more detailed. Why? Because they need to be sure that their goods will be transported securely and will not be any delays, for example, even an hour or two, which translate into money. You understand all this. Even if you don't go into the worst scenario to take control of a ship, for example, if you take out the IT network on board ship and is not able to do whatever, simple emailing for a couple of hours, this is a delay. I just would like to say it's not only the worst case that, wow, is an impact, even a small one has an impact, which is money. So that's why all that requirements that you mentioned, they are out there and will be somehow, I don't want maybe to use the word enforced, but will be asked for managers to apply them. Why? Not for security perspective, for business perspective. Otherwise, guys, you will not be able to sign a contract if you are not cyber security compliant, if I could use that. So that's why I'm happy, let's say, the initiative from IMO, and you know, all that will come after, and it's coming with more details, with more technology, with more recommendation, that it is in the right track. I would say like that, but no more, no security, cyber security, no business. That's the motto I would like to say right now. And that's why I'm happy that I saw that, and it's a pressure, 1st of January, but please don't start doing things on New Year's anniversary, you know, 31st of December. We need to start right now. Thanks.
Okay, Stavros, your thoughts on this?
Yes, thank you. Well, cybersecurity regulation and certification is not a new subject, at least in the land industry. We have the ISO 27001. I would expect the IMO to take at least, let's say, this standard and adapt it to the maritime industry. And to be honest, what's the difference from the technical perspective of a maritime office to an industrial office, or to an office of another, let's say, commercial company on the shore? There's no difference. You have a local area network, you have a wide area network, you have IT, you have software that you have to protect. What is the difference on the vessel? The satellite communication links, which are not always able to manage them easily.
Stavros, I just want to press you a little bit. This is voluntary certification. If we set aside some maybe defense industries and some other sectors for contractual reasons have to comply with this standard, this is a voluntary certification. And when we come to IMO, we're talking about mandatory certification horizontally across the industry. So that would be an issue of how you adapt. I just want to press you a little bit, and then yes, we hear you.
Well, as you said, it's not compulsory. It's a regulation. It's not a certification, the IMO guidelines. I expect the oil majors, at least the oil majors, to come back during the vetting process and say to the maritime companies, do you have an ISO 27001 certification or something equivalent to that? When the oil majors say that, I believe most maritime companies will start thinking that they should get some kind of ISO certification. Until then, the IMO guidelines, as you said, are 3 lines. At least the BIMCO are quite, I don't know, 20, 30 pages, which is something more than the 3 lines. And the ISO 27001 certification is a few hundred pages.
Yeah. Okay, Themis.
Well, in my view, I mean, it's not a not a recommendation. It's not a standard. I mean, what the IMO are doing, so it doesn't have to be long. They just say you have to be prepared. You have cyber security plans in place, and I view it as something similar to a mission statement from a major company, which is usually one line or two lines. I mean, like to make the best products or to have our customers happy. So everything starts like that, and then you analyze and you go deeper. It's a top-down approach in my view. So I don't see why they should have to go and do a marinized version of the 7001, which is, by the way, I checked before, and it's 23 pages long. And the BIBCO guidelines is maybe 30, 50 pages, or NIST, something similar. So they don't have, I don't think they have to go deep into that. They just have to make you think what you need and ask you to have something that is doing the job right. I mean, then there are the sector guidelines like TMSA, which are more specific, and I think and then it's probably going to be country legislation on that. Yeah, I agree with you. It's not very detailed, but I don't think that it needed to be. They raise your flag. You have to have something. There are standards out there that they endorse. You can go and implement what's right for you. It makes it, at least for us, it makes it easier. Just to give you an example of how effective things are, as you said, I'm many years here. I've always had problem convincing our users to get in the past to get a more, a more responsible, let's say, cyber security wise stance. We had some senior users that wanted to have admin access. They didn't want to change their password, stuff like that. Then 10 years ago, we got this in the New York Stock Exchange. And then the Security Commission's meeting comes in and says you have security manuals, security procedures. So we implemented a security policy for our company, head office mainly, and when they changed things immediately. So I had the tool I could use to do what I thought was right, even though, I mean, the leverage I needed, which didn't come from the management voluntarily, it came when someone outside had the power to say you have to do this. And I view the resolution, the IMO resolution, as a similar event. A higher authority comes and says you have to be cyber aware, you have to be security, might have to add this to cyber security, to your risk management, to your SPS, to your mind. So this is a win. I agree, it may be, the bar may be low, but it's a start. And I believe that in the future, we will see it improving and helping us be more secure.
Yeah, okay. Just to add a little bit, because I mentioned so far, if we go to other industries, if we go to banking, for example, if we go to aviation industry, for example, there's a mandatory requirement to report these incidents. That's part of regulation. In shipping, we have the regulatory regime forcing ship operators to report ship incidents involving ships of specific nature, because IMO has a legislation setting the nature of these incidents, meaning if you have a grounding, a collision, a fire, and so on and so forth, you have to report it. But there's no such regime to support, let's say, reporting for cyber incidents, either specifically on ships, and of course, there's no regime to report incidents ashore. I'm just saying, because when it comes to legislation, it may be a number of ways, and we've seen under reporting, because as you said earlier, and anyone might come forward and hear there's an incident on this and this. Yeah, we understand that. But as long as we don't share these incidents on a structured way, we cannot learn from them. So that would be an issue. And I'm just saying, I understand what you say, but There may be a number of ways we can move the industry forward, but I understand that you say one step at a time. I understand what you say. Now, let's hear from Yanis in order to conclude this round of questions and move to the next one. Yanis.
Yes, of course. I'm going to add something on this because mainly I have been covered for all of you guys. You have mentioned the majority of the things that had happened and can be happening in the future to be more cyber secure. However, I would like just to use an expression saying that currently IMO regulation is compliance, and compliance is different actually rather than security. So we do have a lot of things to do to move on the security side. A lot of things can be done for sure to fix all these things and to put it on the correct way. However, I would like to pinpoint two different topics. One of these is the mentality and the mindset, which is very important. And I'm referring to that because whatever the regulations will be, whatever the legislation will be, we have to change our mindset and our mentality on the way we are thinking, and we have to move forward on that. Just to use an example, do you imagine that you are going to go out of your house and you will left your door open or unlocked? No, the answer is no, and this is mindset, this is mentality. So the same have to be done on the cyber side as well. And lastly, I'm pretty sure, or at least this is what I believe that's going to be happen, is that insurance companies will come back soon. And they will put barriers, which is something that should be done in the future. So I'm waiting to hear something from that end and see how this is going to be reflected on the cyber side.
Yanis, thank you for raising the point of insurance. The first insurance premium, I think, arrived in the market maybe 15 months ago, something like that. We've seen a number of players entering the market, but there's no a mainstream move, let's say, to have everything cyber insured. But thank you for raising the point. It's a valid point of the insurance, because it's one of the three pillars of the operation of SIP. So it's how the three pillars are the insurance, the regulation, and of course, how each of the operators, each of the players is enforcing and self-regulating themselves. Now, my next question for the panelists has to do with a number of elements being involved in the cyber safety or cyber security. I would like and ask each one of you, which one of these elements you think is the most critical or the most vulnerable? Not necessarily the same. You may ask the question in a number of ways. I'm just asking, in your opinion, which is the most critical or the most vulnerable element with respect to cyber safety? Starting with Francesco. And of course, I would like to add how, in your opinion, we should approach the issue of minimizing the risk, to put it in that sense. Francesco.
Okay, the reply for me, it's of course depends of the technology of the ship, depends of the maturity of the measure that has been implemented. But also in the modern ship, there is only one network in the ship, and for a very advanced hacker, it's possible from a network port to arrive to the power control of the ship. So the network in the ship internally is the most critical asset for me in the ship maritime board, because we need to protect the network of the ship with a very advanced technology. And my vision, as I mentioned on my slide, is that we can protect the ship from a SOC, from an external services, but can happen that we lost the communication with the ship. And my vision is that we need to be cyber resilience the ship from inside. We need to install technology platform in order to protect the ship from the board. This is my vision, where there is a lot of research in this matter, and in order to maintain and the security of the ship, the operation of the ship, this is the future, the cyber resilience on board. Without any I'm the sponsor. I'm always the sponsor of the cloud. For me, the cloud is the future of the technology, also of the security. The big data can help a lot the company in order to avoid new type of cyber attack. But the ship for me is really a different world. For instance, the port facility is, you can take the port facility as an industrial, standard industrial, but the ship is a different world. You need to consider the ship as a different asset. And for that, you need to create an independent world inside in order to protect the ship from the board.
Thank you. Thank you. Manos, what do you think?
Yes, Apostolos, thanks for that question, because I think this is now the essence of the whole discussions, to go into some practical understanding of what needs to be done. Theory is fine, you all understand the cyber risk. So in the APLUS, we have identified a somehow holistic approach, let's say. What does it mean? You need to do the preparation, of course, as we understand, to do all that compliance issues, to understand the policies that needs to be developed, all that paperwork, let's say. So that's why the APLUS, probably you read it yesterday, had a strategic collaboration with Alpha Marine, which is part of that preparation. We have this from compliance perspective. We also prepare, let's say, our clients in ISO 27001, because as you mentioned, IMO recommended that as best practice. It's not voluntarily, it's recommended in the document. So we prepare that. We also do some tabletop exercises, not for technical level, but up to executive level, to understand the impact to their of a cyber attack. So there are many, many things that need to be done for preparation, but preparation is not enough to stop a cyber attack. You need to have an actual real-time cyber defense capability. I bring this terminology now on this discussion. Let's say that no matter how prepared you are, how many penetration tests you have done, drills, all that stuff, the cyber attack will take place because the hackers are always trying to find the hole, the vulnerability. So what are you doing in real time? That's why in the APLUS we have developed the Cyber Defense Operations Center, which covers not only the land-based company, but also real time of the vessel. We see that as a combined ontology, let's say. So you don't need to say, oh, no, I protect this. Or in real time, we're monitoring with technology that we have what's going on networks in the company and in the vessel. No matter what there is a connectivity or not, we have in place technology also to protect. And if this is in place, we go one step further, because you know, always there is a residual risk and the cyber attack will take place. You need then to have a team in real time to do the incident response, to stop the attack as it is going on. Because attack, just to make a small parenthesis, is not like I press a button and everything is hacked. It has a process, steps. They go into survival, they see the reconnaissance, they do the footprint, so there is phases. In all these phases, if are properly monitored for a Cyber Defense Operations Center, we can stop the attack. That's why then we have the incident response in place that will fit and do that all absolutely in place for a proper and effective real cyber defense. Preparation is fine, but you need also practical real-time monitoring, detection, and response. And as you know, there is always a risk, as we mentioned, residual risk that still will happen. That's why the cyber insurance comes into the game right now, and they are going to ask for high-level cybersecurity measures in place in companies in order to apply lower premiums, like and not the big ones if you don't have anything. So that's 4 elements I see: preparation, real-time monitoring, incident response, and cyber insurance. This is the strategy that we apply in the Applus, and with Alpha Marine, we are in a position right now, and with our technology in-house, to move forward like that.
Thank you very much, Manos. Stavros.
Yes. Well, I think that as an industry, we have all the tools available to ensure cybersecurity either to an office or to a vessel. What we lack top management commitment and line management enforcement of whatever the company will decide, define, and implement. I believe the basic hurdle is the top management. As the previous speakers have said, most of the managers are not convinced that they are in danger. And I would like to expand a little bit on Francesco's speech. We have two, let's say for any vessel, we have 2 points of entry for any attack, either externally from the internet or internally from within the vessel. Externally from the internet, you should not mitigate the defense on the vessel. Any external attack from the internet should be stopped at the satellite communications provider data center in order to ensure that the satellite communications links are available. Any attack originating from within the vessel, let's say from either an email which has been received, a malicious email which has been received and the recipient has acted on it, or through a USB, let's say, stick, should be stopped from any infrastructure from within the vessel. Again, the most important thing is to safeguard the most precious asset of the vessel in terms of technology, and that is the satellite communications links. You may have clean PCs, a clean infrastructure, and with a denial of service, you lose all the satellite links and you cannot do anything. Very simple.
Okay, thank you, Stavros. Themis.
Well, in my view, the #1 issue is awareness, both in the ship board personnel and in our office, in the offices. Everybody has technical measures which are more or less adequate or more or less stringent depending on the implementation. Most of the time, the problems arise from someone clicking a link that they shouldn't click, or going to a website they shouldn't go. So in my view, #1 is awareness. On the ships, I mean, the major attack vector is USBs. And most of the time are not external USBs, except from someone giving a stick to the crew and asking to print the document, for example. Most of the time is crew bring with them external hard disks with videos, etc., and documents, and these are very often infected. So policies on to limit those issues, continuous crew and personnel training to be cyber aware, and a very strict stance towards that. The second thing that is very important is that we are now running on 24/7 operation with a 9 to 5 personnel in most of the shipping. So this, to be monitored correctly, is you need external support in terms of security operations center, your satellite services provider, etc. And this has to be tested frequently and has to be reliable.
Okay, thank you very much, Themis. And Giannis?
Okay. So what I would like to say, because on the technical part, on the technology part, technology is here, everything is here in front of us. The ways that we can resolve an issue are available nowadays. So there are too many different technical things that you can do depending on the situation. It's time, but we must evolve, and I'm going to insist on that. I mean that there are too many solutions, but solutions are not common and have not to be used like that. We have to do things on separate cases. Each case is a separate one, and have to work and build the cybersecurity program based on the needs of each company separately, on general rules, of course, but taking into consideration the extra needs that may have. So a general answer in this question, in my view, it's not existing. We have to be focused and flexible just to avoid and mitigate this type of risk. So the management commitment is something which is very, very essential on that direction, just to follow up and continue on the correct way.
Okay, thank you. Manos, you would like to comment on? Yes, Manos.
Just to say something, that the approach, according to my opinion, should be not the protection either on the land-based company or on the vessel or on the data center of satellite communications provider. The correct answer, I think, must be end on the land-based company, end on the ship, end on the database center, and whoever has access to that. Why I say that? Because there is no 100% security. So you cannot claim that I can stop the cyber attack at this point. Always there is a possibility to bypass whatever measures you have. This is the reality. So you need to go into the next entry point, which is the ship, for example. What are you doing there? Nowadays, just a simple antivirus, it's not the correct approach. It has been proved that it's not enough. As we shared several times, there are unknown threats. What does it mean, unknown threat? Unknown threat means that the cybersecurity community has not identified it yet, but the hackers has found the zero-day vulnerability and they can go into whatever network. That means that your traditional stuff like firewall only and antivirus, it's not enough. That's why you need advanced security to handle it in every place. Also, the ecosystem has also the port, as you mentioned. You have also the third supply chain. Everyone should be secure. But my comment is that we need to have a holistic approach at every level and to cover people, processes, and technology. Training, as we said, awareness, new, of course, approach on processes, and of course, technology. You cannot have one or the other. And please, let's go hand by hand with a telecommunications provider and try to find the best solution for whom? For the ship owners, for our, let's say, people that we care about them, and we want to give them the safe and secure environment to continue moving, continue operating. That was my comment. Okay. Sorry for the parenthesis.
Okay. Yes, Francesco, yes.
Just a fast comment on the start of sentence. I agree with you. And in order to, we are mentioning a lot of time, the security is difficult for the security to have budget every time. And as you mentioned, we need to protect all endpoints. With limited budget sometimes, but the new technology are used, for instance, the artificial intelligence to reply automatically to the threats. This is for me the future. For instance, in the ship where there is, because just to example, in a cruise company, in a cruise ship, there is a lot of stuff, and maybe for a cruise company, add a cybersecurity expert is not a big impact on all overall of the teams. But image in a small vessel where there is like 4 or 5 team on the ship. The ship company cannot have one expertise consultant on the ship. So the artificial intelligence can help the company in order to create ship cyber resilience with a limited cost, because with artificial intelligence, we can reply automatically, we can respond automatically to the cyber attack in an automatic way. Of course, it's just the beginning of this technology, but it is the future in order to protect also the ship with a limited cost.
Okay. Now, is anyone else from the panel who would like to add a comment or something? No. Okay. Now, my last question is, because we have 5 minutes, 6 minutes. I want you to be brief, let's say 30, 40 seconds. My last question is, what have we learned so far out of these cyber incidents, either in shipping or outside shipping, as we move forward within the pandemic era and maybe post-pandemic? How do we promote a cyber resilient culture? What have we learned from the incidents to promote this cyber resilient culture? Just try to be brief, let's say 30, 40 seconds each, because we have to close to wrap up the panel. Francesco.
It is a very hard work in particular for the IT manager, and I think they need to use the past incident to show to the management the impact in the business on the security to receive more budget for the cyber technology. This is my suggestion for the IT manager, for all the people that are involved in the company, in order to receive more budget for the cyber.
Okay, Manos.
What we have learned is that the cyber risk is real. It's not the James Bond issue anymore. Okay, so we have found out it in a hard way. So we need to treat the cyber risk as a very high risk and pay attention to minimize it, to find all the mitigation and all the measures to either reduce probability or the impact or both. So yes, the cyber risk is real. Yes, it's high. Yes, we need to pay attention. Ownership needs to pay attention and, of course, provide budget and invest in cybersecurity, which actually, if they think that it's a fraction of the benefit that they will have from the business that they are going to have. So it's a one-way, let's say, decision to move forward. And cyber risk is going to be here and will stay as long as we use the cyberspace, similarly as we will use the physical environment.
Absolutely. Stavros.
I would say to the maritime companies, and specifically to the top management, that the financial return or benefit of business continuity is far greater than the cost of implementing and operating any cybersecurity plan.
Okay. Thank you, Stavros. Please.
So we've seen huge companies being attacked like Maersk and CMA CGM recently. Those companies have huge teams compared to us, and yet they suffer, and they are very strict on cybersecurity, but it did happen. So it can happen to anybody. I agree that it's really important how you continue to operate after the attack. Okay, so business continuity, I would agree, is the #1 priority. You have to be protected, you have to have your budget, but what do you do if things go south?
Yeah. Thank you, Femis. That's real life issues. And Yannis?
Yeah, for my end statement would be that digitalization is increasing in the maritime sector, and more on-board systems are being connected. We know that this brings more benefits to industry. However, the risk of cyber incidents is also increasing. Attack surfaces are growing, and threat actors are seizing these opportunities. Cybersecurity is business imperative. Cyber incidents create risks that impact the safety of the crew, the vessel, the environment, and maybe at the end the financial loss. Although the regulatory bodies are bringing new guidelines forward, cybersecurity in maritime is still behind. Compliance does not equal to security, as I said before. The industry needs to invest in industrial cybersecurity capabilities, making cyber operation a part of the day-to-day businesses.
Okay, thank you all very much. Thank you for your contribution and comments. I would like to thank all our viewers. For those of you who are watching this and the stream and you haven't have missed, let's say, part of the panel, the full recording will be available on our YouTube channel. Thank you all very much. And for our viewers, we'll be back in 30 minutes with the physical security panel. Thank you very much.